Abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada, yada, yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining the Tyred Boys podcast, #1 Formula One podcast in the world. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've got another fun episode for you today. A lot to talk about with the Japanese Grand Prix and some extracurriculars outside of that from the past couple of weeks since the Chinese Grand Prix. Justin, it's good to be back. My raspy voice is going to carry us through, but we'll get there.
No, I'm enjoying it. It makes me feel like I'm in like a smoky saloon with some some blues players up on the stage. It's really setting the vibe, and I think it's going to be a great raspy voice to talk with about all the happenings of the Japanese Grand Prix. I think you're going to be fine.
I think you've been watching a little too much noir films with the intrigue and the raspy voice and the jazzy nightclub vibes. But yeah, we've got a lot to get into today. We've got a good episode. We've got a lot of conversation about the Red Bull driver swap after discussing that on the last podcast and the potential for that to happen since it hadn't been announced at that point, and some of the different effects of that on both teams and both drivers. So plenty to get into, but we'll start off here with the quick hitters. So first one we had was Marc Marquez had a couple of pretty interesting situations throughout his MotoGP weekend at Circuit of the Americas. First one, his bike just quit on him on the pit straight in the second qualifying session. There's only 2 qualifyings in MotoGP. So he hopped over the wall, sprinted down the pit lane, got on his spare bike with about 2.5 minutes to go, and went out and took pole position in that qualifying on that last run that he had. So a very impressive and kind of odd situation for him, but it shows kind of why he has been around MotoGP for a very long time now and why he's had so much success. But also during the main race, or I guess prior to the main race, he was having conversations with his team about setting up a second bike for wet weather because there was potential for rain. He did a last second, he kind of kept it under wraps so no other drivers would pick up and try to cover off and do something similar, and then swap bikes last second as the rain started to come down at the beginning of the Grand Prix. So it didn't pan out perfectly. He didn't end up finishing the race, but a kind of the marks of a champion and a competitor and a veteran from those decision-making skills for Marquez, and kind of keeping a cool head on his shoulders, especially in the qualifying session.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating to hear. And honestly, like, it's a really key thing to go after if your series has these like extra car rules where there's like, one available should you need it. Understanding that is available, and like you said, the decision making of a veteran to act on it and just start moving in that direction, not just like defaulting to like, oh, I've crashed out, I'm done, like, oh, session over, whatever it is. Like, no, I'm just gonna run across, get my other bike, and continue down the path. So great heads up action from Marquez. I love to hear that. And then also this like hedging your bets, having an extra bike set up, which, if the rules are allowing it, go for it. You can take advantage of that position. Like you said, doesn't end up working out. But I love to hear when competitors are like looking to get the edge. He's looking to gain any advantage he can, and I love to hear that.
Yeah, and it was when I first saw the clip of qualifying, I was kind of caught off guard because the bike stopped on the straight and he just kind of leaned it up against the wall, hopped the wall and left it there. Which I was like, that seems like it could be a safety issue. It's not at a turn or anything, so it shouldn't be, um but yeah, that was a interesting wrinkle that I hadn't seen really before. Um so a pretty cool moment for him with that Circuit of the Americas MotoGP race. The second quick hitter was the Jarno Opmeer, who's been a mainstay in the Formula One sim racing esports scene. Won his third F1 sim racing drivers championship. Um, the sim racing world is just pretty cool. I really enjoyed being able to watch here and there and see even just some of the highlights of these racers, and the racing is competitive. It's very similar to, I think, the quality of drive that you see in a lot of uh, real life motorsports as opposed to esports. Um, but very cool for him to continue to have success there with the Red Bull livery as well. So pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's exciting. He gets his third title, and yeah, when I was looking up details about this young gentleman Otmir, I was like, man, that name's very familiar. I'm pretty sure he won like very recently as well. Like it was just like, oh yeah, like very familiar. And then when I was looking, it's like, oh yeah, he's part of the Red Bull Racing family. So I was it made sense as to why we would be interested to bring it up as part of the conversation. But yeah, a third one for the guy, that's pretty neat. My favorite part about the sim racing is the complex um seat setups that they have,
Oh
and
yeah.
how the how they do their best to get them as like connected to the road as possible, basically. That to me is just fascinating. And you're right, if there are races where I think some people watching, if you did not tell them that it was a video game, that it was not, like an esport, there are certain elements that would be like unmistakable from the real thing. So yeah, I've found some of the races that I've watched to be quite exciting. And yeah, Otmir now a top competitor in that event.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's definitely fun to check out, and I think you're right. A lot of people wouldn't notice if they weren't told otherwise. They might be a little surprised by the names that are up there, but if you swap the
Hmm.
nameplates, then they'll be like, oh, okay, this is um, slightly out of order from what I would expect, but otherwise not too different. Um, but
Before
then,
we move on, do you
yeah.
know, is that F1 sim racing that is on the F1 franchise game, or do they use iRacing for the the sim racing?
So they use the F1 game, I'm fairly certain, but for a lot, I would say most sim racing in general is through iRacing. It seems to be the most accurate um, racing simulator for video games and esports and all. But
Mm.
the F1 game is not too far off.
Well, right. I guess that's the point that I was going to get to. That's a lot of pressure on the devs of the game to have their product be like the idea is to make it uh as robust as possible, right? And as close to the real thing as they can get. And to do a title every year, that's quite interesting actually, but I guess like to a certain degree, like doesn't really matter. I guess the competitive esport of like say a Call of Duty uses just whatever the newest iteration of the game is, regardless of like this feature or that feature, or
Mm,
if X, Y, or Z doesn't work too well. So yeah,
even
that's
like
like that's
other sports games too. I mean,
right.
FIFA, Madden, they have their own esports and championships and everything. Of course, not as big as some of the other like major esports like CS:GO or League of Legends, but those games do have their own esports scenes as well, and they're always playing on just whatever the newest version is. So
Interesting. Okay, gotcha. But and that's like, I imagine in some ways kind of a double-edged sword for the F1 esports, where I think there is a lot of trust and prestige in iRacing as a place to hold your esport racing events. They, in my mind, they are kind of like the upper echelon of, that bracket. So interesting that Formula One uses its own franchise game to like try and compete with that environment. But very cool for Otmir. Sorry, my video game coded brain had to uh get into that
divert
a
a
little
little
bit,
bit,
but
yeah.
yeah, divert a little bit. So no worries. The other thing that caught my eye and seems to be you as well is some of the outfits and merch that was on display for the teams was really eye-catching this week. To be honest, I love the like white with a splash of color motif
Mm.
that is, in a lot of Japanese artistry. So tell me about some of the clothing options that really caught your eye here at the start of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean some of the biggest ones that I saw, I really liked the hat and the coveralls and everything that Red Bull did as a pivot with their alternate livery. But the Aston Martin team put out some really cool gear as well. They had some jerseys with Stroll and Alonso's number on the side, the like cherry blossom flowers and that flower motif kind of going across the shoulders. And similarly with the hat, just super clean with a lot of white, but some of the splash of the team colors with those designs as well. I always enjoy um, the Japanese Grand Prix for the liveries, all the different helmet designs, everything that teams do and drivers do. But alongside that, I think it fits well with the fandom in Japan for Formula One. Throughout the weekend, just seeing the different fans in the stands cheering on and all the um, just effort and energy that they put into their outfits and everything is a blast to see. Lewis ended up getting, I saw he got a picture with a guy who had dyed his hair to look like Lewis's helmet, with all the designs and everything bright yellow and all into it. And so I feel like having all these alternate or one-off merch things that they sell also just is it goes hand in hand with the energy and the vibe of the Japanese Grand Prix. So a lot of the teams, if you're interested, we're not shilling out for any in particular team, but if you like Formula One merch, a lot of teams put out some cool one-off things for the Japanese Grand Prix this past week.
To your point about the fans having, very intentional, I don't want to say garb, but like accessories that they wear or bring as their like team affiliated whatever. You see them with like the driver helmets that you can get. My favorite are the ones that they have, which are, they look like, like crash helmets or whatever, but they have like a full F1 race car, like,
I
on
know
the
exactly what
helmet.
you're talking about, yeah.
Dude, those are so awesome and so funny in, like, the best kind of way, and I just love seeing, like, those fans in the stand that have, like, the full cars on their head. Those are just, like,
Well,
full
it's
committal. I love them.
yeah, and it's so always so well done. Like they look like the cars and look very legitimate. And I don't know if it's paper mache or what they use to make some of these things, but I'm always very impressed for the for the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think if I ever go to a race live, I'm gonna have to get a car hat. That's where it's at. But yeah, dude, my favorite was the Haas livery with the like the white and the pink cherry blossoms. It's so much like that's like like a very cool, tasteful, artistic, like awesome use of like pink on the race car.
Yeah.
We could always make fun of the Force India car, where it just looks like Pepto Bismol like running around the track. But the Haas Japanese livery was very cool. So yeah, I always love, like you were saying, the one offs that they do for the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka.
Yeah, I am surprised though. I expected your favorite livery from the weekend to be the steaks Wagyu steak car.
No,
The
no,
Did you see the promotional video that they put out for it?
no, I didn't.
I
So
will
that's
have
probably why
to
like it got lost on
no,
me.
I'll have to find it, but it was hilarious. Just the editing and everything was pristine. You're hearing all the steak sizzle sounds and everything in the background as it was pretty funny.
Okay.
So it gives it a little bit of extra meat, you could say. But
Very good one, very good one. Let's move on, please.
but
Jesus.
yeah, the Red Bull, the final alternate livery with the white livery. I'm a big fan of that one as well, even though it's not uh, as it doesn't have as many of those decals and designs on it. Going with the original Honda colors for Honda's home Grand Prix is a pretty cool throwback. So I enjoyed seeing that. I think it's a very clean looking livery. Looks very much like the Racing Bulls car too. So can maybe swap them in and out. You never know. But yeah, some fun for the Japanese Grand Prix.
Big time agree. I mean, all right. I don't want to divert the conversation, but yeah, are we going to stop pretending like Red Bull and Red Bull are two different teams? Like they have four cars on the grid.
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
we'll get to that I think a little bit more shortly and can dive into it. But to wrap out the quick hitters, just a couple of notes for the race weekend. But I found out in between the last Grand Prix and this Grand Prix that Kimi Antonelli is still like going to physical school in between race weekends. I think that's just wild that this guy is probably making millions of euros and he's just like showing up to school week after week. Um, that's just a pretty funny prospect. I feel like you could easily make like a school anime about it.
Yeah, they did a fastest lap pep rally for him in the gymnasium when he got back to school.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I feel like I would feel awkward, but I guess when you have that the confidence, you're a professional racing driver, like um I guess you can brush it off a little easier.
Yeah, but I mean, the beautiful thing for me is you only have like very small opportunities for individuals to be doing something like really extremely high level at the same time that they're like going to school. I mean, heck, we remember God knows what his real name is, but I mean, heck, even his teachers called him Zion Spartan. It's like cool to have that support from, like your local community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I I hope that there's just so many Mercedes fans in that school.
Oh, I'm sure there are, and probably plenty of Kimmy fans. But the final quick hitter is that with the Japanese Grand Prix, that was Fernando Alonso's 406th race. And the significance of that is that his 203rd race was his last win. So he is now gone the same length of his career from his first race to his last win as he has now had from when he last won a race to now. It's a perfect split, I guess. So it's been too long. We need a Fernando Alonso victory, is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and he hasn't had a victory since he's been back in Formula One this stint, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think a Fernando Alonso win would be wonderful for the sport. That would just be a feel good. That would just be a feel good summer movie of the year. You know what I mean?
I mean, it would be up there, like similar in my mind to the Pierre Gasly or Esteban Ocon wins. Something crazy would have to happen. It would have to be a really odd race. But I think everyone would like it. So
For sure. Definitely agree with that.
yeah. But to move along from the quick hitters into you work here, we had some more reports about the Cadillac seats with Sergio Perez being indicated as one of the top options now that it is the cat's out of the bag. The second Red Bull car is a nightmare to drive, and teams are going, wait a second, that guy wasn't too bad when the Red Bull car seemed like it was reasonable to drive. So maybe he's a good option for a seat. So Colton Herta, Sergio Perez, and then apparently Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guan Yu are currently the top four names that are circling around the Cadillac um, seats for 2026. I think a lot of good options with those drivers. Obviously, I think that we're going to end up seeing Colton Herta, but Perez or Valtteri Bottas would both be, I think, solid veteran drivers that you could slot in as the team is growing and getting their feet under them. That will potentially make that an easier transition into Formula One.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be curious about a Joe pickup for Cadillac. I mean, man, the sponsorship money from that guy would be insane as well. That would just be like a big boon to the team. I mean, there is like the cost cap,
It's
like you can't overspend, but you'd be able to get like closer to that. I really would like the Herta pickup, getting an IndyCar all-star over into Formula One, trying that experiment as like a first year into the sport. I think there'd be something interesting about that. Yeah, and Perez, I would love to see him back. Obviously, he struggled a lot in 24. But yeah, I think all of them have at least like an interesting angle as to like why you would pick them up.
yeah, and I mean on Valtteri's side, I think he is probably the had the highest highs of those drivers
Oh,
that are on the
sure.
list. And so, and especially with his consistency, I think that that's another thing he brings. But yeah, Perez, Joe both bring a lot of sponsorship money that could be valuable. And they're, of course, they have experience in Formula One as well. So a few options still up in the air for Cadillac, but I'm sure as the season progresses, we'll get a better idea of what the expected lineup will be for next year. But moving over to kind of a bigger topic, we touched on it briefly, but I wanted to dig into this whole Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson driver swap a little bit that we have here. Like you said, both teams being under the Red Bull ownership group, or at least board in terms of driver lineups and everything. I mean, yeah, they have four seats, two car or two, yeah, I guess two different cars. Um, there were conversations of, well, what happens the um if the V carb just crushes the RB even after the swap? What if Yuki just gets smoked by Liam this weekend in what is supposed to be the worst car? Bernie Ecclestone's out there saying that if Max Verstappen's not driving that Red Bull, then that car is the 10th car in the on the grid. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that I think have started, and I imagine that a if they actually decided to utilize both teams just fully and go, oh, like the V carb right now is the better car than the Red Bull, let's throw Max into that car. If that happens, then I think that FIA is cracking down, one team's being sold off, and they're like, no, this is gone too far. But it 100% is an unfair advantage. There's a difference between a partnership like Williams and Mercedes had when Williams was a smaller team before they were bought out in recent years, where George Russell was kind of given that drive to get his legs under him in Formula One before being essentially promoted to Mercedes from Williams. That's the way it was kind of always talked about because he was part of the Mercedes driver program, but it's still much further apart than what we see with Red Bull and the Racing Bulls.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not like opposed to it. I'm more of just like can somebody else just like say it please? Because right, that's like and you're hitting the critical point. If they make a move down in a way because like that car is actually stronger, if they go like the opposite way, it's like now they really are like utilizing all possible avenues of advantage. And I think that's where it just starts to get questionable, where it's like, are they breaking rules? Does there have to be like new rules put in place against us, like you're saying, like do they sell off the team? But yeah, the way it just happened, and like this is like a pre-Suzuka like part of the conversation, is like the as fast as that happened. And there's a statistic about Liam's hours on the team here that you have, where it's like, yeah, like he was just in and out lightning quick. They're just using, um, they're behaving as though like there's no barriers between those two teams. So yeah, very interesting stuff. That would be a worry. The conversation is Yuki has a guaranteed contract to the end of the year, but I would not trust that as far as I could throw Helmet Marco, down the pit lane. It's like I'm sure that's been the case with every other driver that they sent off early, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it
There's always going to be contingencies based on performance and everything. I feel like almost at this point though, it's a um they're like, we're sticking with him through the end of the season because there's no other alternative, I guess, more than
sure.
anything. It's like, it who else are you gonna throw in there? Colapinto's locked up. Even if you buy him out of a contract, by the point that you're at, Yuki hasn't done anything either point in the season. Like, you're not doing anything in the constructors. You're going to be
Mhm.
that middleman fourth team that is going to be getting gapped by the top three who have two drivers in the points, and you're going to be way above the Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Aston Martin crew who
Mhm.
picks up consistent points, but they're like 4 or 5 a weekend instead of 25 with the max win. So yeah, it's I think pretty certain that Yuki's there, but like you said, can't trust him as far as you can throw him.
But I mean, hey, I think Yuki performed respectably. Just as far as like if you just zoom in straight onto Yuki Tsunoda, he was only 2 places back from like what our perceived average for Yuki is. We're likely plus or minus 2 on it. Like my general perception is Yuki is the 10th best driver on the grid. He was a little bit behind that. The one thing I'll give him going into the weekend, and this is what I think was very funny about his approach, like in the um in the times like leading up to the weekend, he was saying how he's like, yeah, I see what the other drivers were talking about, but there was like always a but. He was always like, "Yeah, it doesn't seem like that bad to me." He's like, "I'm able to manage, like, whatever phrasing you want." But I thought it was funny. He's like, "Yeah, like I could see what they were talking about, but like it doesn't feel like that bad." He's like, I may be able to get around this." So Yuki being confident, I think that's like very important. Even Liam, he sounded very confident. I think for him, he got the worst of it as far as like performance wise.
Mm.
There's no way that was like where you wanted to be. I think even on Sonoda's end, there would have been at least race gains to have made, to my understanding, based on what I had read coming out of the Red Bull camp. It was very similar to what Lewis Hamilton used to do with George Russell. It was like a setup difference. I think more strategic than testing is what like Lewis
Mm.
Hamilton used to do. But I think this was like, hey, I'm gonna opt for this setup. I know it's gonna leave me disadvantaged in this way, but I'm gonna be opened up in this regard. I think that just like 50-50. I don't think it like worked out for Yuki, so he was kind of locked out from his race in that regard. But in that Yuki to Liam conversation, I think Yuki finished far enough ahead of that RB where it's like, okay, yeah, this was like a fine choice, improved significantly on the first 2 races that Liam was able to do. So it's like, okay, seems fair. And then throw the layer of, well, Isaac Hadjar finished P8. What do you do with that information? Okay, so
Hmm.
wait. So an RB, even after the worst qualifying you could possibly think of, Isaac Hadjar is literally being stabbed in the side by his racing seat in qualifying, and he goes better than Liam Lawson does in the
Yeah.
RB. It's the same car. He finished like twice as high up the grid. So there's some questions to be answered for sure. And a couple more rounds in, if we're still having these results, these types of conversations, it's chalked. It's chalked. We're going to have to look forward to 2026 and forget about it because, like, I don't believe that Mercedes and McLaren are like hiccuping at the start of this year as much as Red Bull and the RB are, right? They're all mixed up.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so bizarre. We've talked about it so many times, but the key statistics being for an individual driver is your comparison against your direct teammate. And there's obviously, we always throw in these caveats when Logan Sargent is using a car that is like uh a decade behind Alex Albon's because they've crashed it so many times and don't have the parts to have the new setup on both cars. Like that, we always vocalize these things. Not that we expected Logan Sargent to be keeping up with Alex Albon, but we you have to take those things into consideration when you're comparing. But this is side by side on all accounts, same car, like you said, and obviously Liam comes in. It's his first week and a half back in the squad with the Racing Bulls. The car is going to be different than it was when he most recently drove it. Um, so there's definitely some uh like growing pains potentially there as well. But like you said, I think after the next couple of race weekends, maybe after this triple header, if we're still seeing these same results, um, yeah, it might be kind of done for the Red Bull team for the year in terms of constructors championship fight. So they maybe you can duke it out with Ferrari a little bit if Max is able to continue podium finishes, getting some race wins and everything, and Ferrari is kind of stuck in that P7 P8 kind of range, maybe. Um, but that's kind of the only way you're competing for P3 in the constructors if things continue as they are. Um, yeah, and with the driver swap, like you said, with Yuki's confidence and all, I think part of what helped that is I think a lot of pressure's kind of been taken off him. I know a lot of people were feeling the opposite way of like, oh, you're getting promoted into this position and everything, and like, oh, the guy before you did like he's kind of set up to not have a lot of pressure on him in my mind. They're like, it couldn't get any worse than what the start of the season was for the first two races in sprint with Liam. I mean, literally the worst qualifyings of any Red Bull driver in their first three qualifying sessions ever. Um, and then alongside that, like he's the second choice. He can be like, they didn't pick me. I didn't get the time and energy and everything to spend preparing myself for this car for this season and getting into the swing of things. Like I just got injected into this team on a whim last minute. Like what can you really expect from me? So coming in with confidence of like, I'm going to figure it out and do my best, and that's all I can do. Like, you're kind of set up for failure. So if you fail, no one's going to be that upset with you in a sense. But I can see the other side of Red Bull's like we've got to find the solution, and yeah, you want to be that solution. And so there is some pressure there, of course, but I think he managed it well. He said that Pierre Gasly and Checo both reached out to him to talk about some of the things that maybe they would have done differently, or things that they did while they were with the team that were beneficial to them, and kind of help talk him through with that. So I appreciate that they took the time to help out a friend. And Yuki clearly gets on well with most of the drivers on the grid. I don't really see him getting too chippy with anyone. I think it's more his own race engineers that hear him yelling than anything. But um, yeah, I think that was probably something that helped a little bit as well with the transition.
Yeah, definitely. I think the expectations and goals for each of the drivers and Red Bull as a whole, it feels like the um team, fans, driver, like goals slash expectations, it feels like there may be some misalignments in that regard, where it sounds like Red Bull kind of like they want to be winning now. They don't want to take any like development time. Like, and it feels like that's what all of their moves are motivated out of. They think there's some right piece that they can shift where like they begin to win now again. Fans are like, we want somebody to like help with Max and blah blah blah. And like you're saying with Yuki, it's just like, yeah, what do you want? Like I'm your best option. I'm doing the best I can with the car that you're providing me. So yeah, I think there's a lot to figure out for Red Bull right now. As far as driver championship cash, thank or world driver championship for Max, they're still clearly in the fight. But yeah,
It definitely would help though if Yuki's able to get himself up there a bit further. We'll talk
of course.
we'll talk a little bit more later on, but Max very easily, I feel like, could have been forced out of the race lead this weekend. I feel like it could have been done by McLaren, and they didn't, because they didn't handle their strategy very well. But having a second driver at the front is definitely helpful in the drivers' championship. But then again, Max is Max, and he's gonna figure it out with or without anyone, the car, the team. Then he'll find a way. Um,
Sure, yeah, at least for the solo championship,
yeah.
100%.
But looking at some of the other comments, now we're talking about kind of these teams that have this gap between their drivers, but I wanted to hear your take on Lando's comment from this past weekend where he said that we're the only team that has two good drivers at the minute, and
Mhm,
Zach Brown kind of doubled down on that later on, and added as well that the McLaren is not the fastest car on the grid.
mhm.
That the success they're seeing is because of their driver lineup and not their car, because it's slower than something out there per Zach Brown, um, which I
I think that's just a good bit of banter, man. I think that's Lando saying like, yeah, nobody has anything on us. Me and Oscar are the truth right now. Um, the two good drivers gives flowers to like Max basically. It's like, okay, like he's a good driver, but there's not two like in a team kind of deal. I think a little bit if you were to take Lando very seriously here, you would be like, "What? Wait, either he's throwing shade on Charles or he's throwing shade on Lewis and not in my house, right?"
Well, and that's
There's
what the comment was originally like in regards to. He was saying that Ferrari we're not he was like we're not that far ahead of them. But really in that interview he was downplaying the car as the
sure,
reason for the wins, and which of course, like, the cars are very competitive. We see that in qualifying. No one is half a second up on the field in qualifying, where the McLarens aren't putting it P1 and 2 and then having a half a second gap to P3
right.
each week or anything like that. So it is close, but the McLaren car is definitely the best car on the grid in my opinion. Um and do I think that McLaren has a solid drivers lineup? Absolutely. Do I think theirs is the best? Potentially, but I can't in good conscience say that they're the only team with two good drivers at the
No,
moment
of
on
course
the
not.
like
No,
it's
he doesn't even believe that, mate.
I then why say it?
Because it's banter. He's just it's trash talk. He's just
I
saying like, nah,
guess.
you guys aren't good.
I mean,
That's the full confidence of a guy that's about to like go on and win the solo championship. Like you can't like you're not giving anybody else flowers when your eye is on the prize at the end of that hunt. Like you don't care. You don't care about these dudes' feelings.
I mean,
I think you're reading too much into it, and you want these guys to be like, "Oh, yes, sir. Please, yes, go
no.
right ahead, sir."
I
No,
you
I think he's riling everybody up. I think you're the mark, honestly.
Well, I mean, it's not even about like being riled up. It's more the conversation of like the but I guess if you just look at it as banter and not serious, then there's not as much of a conversation about like what other driver lineups are like you would kind of say are competitive or have two really competitive drivers. Because you could say obviously Charles and Lewis, you can say George Russell and Kimmy, but even with that, Kimmy's a rookie, he's inexperienced, he's performing well currently, but there's
Mhm.
not really enough data there to genuinely say like two good drivers, like, but he is on a solid track of form. And so yeah, I mean, but Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz are both very good drivers. They're just in Williams, which is coming up the grid. But I thought that it could be more of a conversation about some of the drivers lineups. And I mean, Lance Stroll, Fernando Alonso, pretty good pairing up there. Um,
I mean, that's an obvious one. That's an obvious one. They only have one driver. Yeah, I mean, if you look at some of the teams towards the bottom of the leaderboards, yes, I think there's like some more validity to the conversation. But if you're
yeah,
gonna try and pretend like any of the top 5 teams, any of their combinations are like to be laughed at, I think you're
yeah.
having a bath, man. I think that's silly.
Well, yeah, and that's why I felt like reading the comments. I didn't see video of the interview, but it seemed like I feel like part of it that plays in for me as well is that Lando continuously downplays his car when it has been definitively the best car for like this entire second half of last year and the start of this year. And
Mhm.
when Max was winning in the best car, Lando is saying it's just the car. When Lewis is winning in the best car, Lando is saying it's just the car. But now when Lando's winning with the best car, no, it's me and my boy Oscar, and that's it. This car actually blows, and we're dragging this tractor around the track, or lawnmower as it were this weekend. And so I think that that plays into um, my thought process a little bit is that he's been vocal about saying other people are car merchants when they're winning, but then but not me. Couldn't be me. Um and I mean, of course everyone's going to want to pump their own success up and pump themselves up, and you're not going to talk super negatively about yourself if you're having success or anything, but yeah, I think that's where some of that comes from for me.
Okay, gotcha. So you're like, come on, Lando, like if you're gonna dish it out in that way, you should be able to like
It's okay
um
to say you're the best driver and have the best car. Like that's like an okay thing to say. Max did it for 2 years where he was just like, yeah, no one's anywhere close to me. Like you guys made a great car for me and I'm driving it to perfection. Like
mhm,
he wasn't very I feel like he didn't downplay it, but it's also it's a different driver. It's someone who already had a world championship under his belt and everything. Um, so yeah, it's a little bit different, but I think it is interesting, especially as the season goes on, if we're seeing some disparity between two drivers on the same team. Like even with Hajar and how well he's been performing consistently compared to, I mean, Yuki was doing well in the V car, but just not getting the strategy or getting the luck to finish in the points before he switched over. Um,
mhm.
but that could be a very interesting thing to look at with Liam and Isaac as the season progresses, or any number of drivers. Alex Albon has had Carlos Sainz's number so far this season. Carlos being new in the team, that's of course um, a little more difficult for him, but yeah, just more of an interesting conversation. I won't get too heated about Lando's comments.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't mean to shoot you down. I just don't want to like get too in the weeds about like what ultimately is just like I think just good fun between the drivers and the teams and the personalities therein. I think
It's fair.
to seriously underrate his opponents like that would be like a true mistake, and I don't believe like McLaren are in the business of making like fatal mistakes like that. And I think that's like where you would be if he actually believed that. No, no, I imagine he takes each of his opponents very seriously as
Yeah.
like true competitors, but here on the surface for the cameras, for the microphones, yeah, I think he is very much like backing like himself and the team. Maybe not the car, but like at least like himself.
Yeah, that's fair. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
so a interesting thing for the McLaren team coming into the weekend, I guess, with not the fastest car per Zach Brown. You can quote him on it, and this week happened to be true. But before we get into the race, we want to just go ahead and remind you, if you're watching, go ahead and like the video, subscribe if you haven't, turn on notifications so you know when we're going live. We're streaming live on Twitch for our episodes as we record, and then we'll be putting out additional content, whether on YouTube Shorts, TikTok. So check out our link tree and make sure you're following us everywhere for all the different content.
Thank you so much for joining us and following us on our episodes. New episodes releasing after every Formula One race. Yeah, and thank you very much. And back to the episode.
So, Justin, you have another hot seat episode for us this week. You've got the Japanese Grand Prix hot seat. So, why don't you give a little refresher on the rules, and we'll get into it.
All right, so for those following along at home, we got 5 questions, 3 choices each, little multiple choice, and these questions are to give us a little insight into maybe a little bit of the history of the tracks that we're racing at, maybe a little bit of history of the some of the races that have gone on. So just a fun way to get a little history and just to grill my friend Aaron. Now, last episode was a doozy. But I'm really thinking this is going to be the week that we get a 5 out of 5. So welcome to the hot seat for the Japanese Grand Prix, Aaron. Let's kick it off. Question number one: historically, Japan is one of the last races of the season. How many World Drivers' Championships have been crowned at this title deciding circuit? Is it A, 8? Is it B, 10? Or is it C, 13 drivers?
I will go with A8.
A8. That is incorrect, sir. The answer is C13.
Okay.
A good number of the Prost v Senna years ended at Suzuka. There's so many. I think there's like 3 years in a row where it's like Senna v Prost, like just classic that goes on. So a lot of champions have been crowned. Like I said, it's C13. Just to give you a little bit of context for that one. Question number two, we have its unique layout makes it one of a kind on the F1 calendar. What general shape is the Suzuka circuit? Is it A, oval? Is it B, a figure eight? Or is it C, a square?
It is B, a figure eight.
Nailed it. Nailed it. And one of the most iconic tracks, in my opinion, I think the spoon curve leading up into the 130R is just such a beautiful like sequence of turns. I guess you could just call it like a sector as it is. But yeah, Suzuka, one of the best. Now, question three here. What year did Ayrton Senna drive a comeback race to win his first title here at Suzuka over his teammate Alain Prost? Was it A, 1988, B, 1986, or C, 1984? The year that Ayrton Senna won his first title.
Let's go with B.
B86, 2 years off, sir. He won in 88 for his first.
Okay.
All right. I thought you would know your Ayrton Senna history, your
I
dog named
should.
after them. Okay. All right. Oh, man. I'm sorry, sir. Question number 4. Suzuka was used as a test track in its early years for which Japanese engine manufacturer? Is it A, Honda, B, Mazda, or C, Nissan?
It is a Honda.
Nailed it, sir. The whole weekend in often it is, in kind of homage to Honda and their heritage in racing. So you nailed that one, good sir. And now question 5. Here we go. Another layup for you. I know you're a big Max fan. Now Max Verstappen is now tied for wins at Suzuka. Who's he tied with? Is it A, Lewis Hamilton, B, Michael Schumacher, or C, Sebastian Vettel?
B. Michael Schumacher.
Incorrect, sir. It is
Oh.
Sebastian Vettel. He's tied with 4 wins at Suzuka. Michael Schumacher actually has the most. He has 6 wins there. Um,
Mm.
so incorrect
I
on that
was
one.
yeah,
I'm
two for
seeing
five again.
2 for 5, man. And I'll be honest, like
Brutal.
when I'm making these, like I don't like I'm not like, ooh, I'm really gonna
Oh
stump
no,
in. Like,
I
oh, if anything,
there
I'm trying to be like, oh, what might he know actually?
no, I mean I think you've done well with it. It's I am definitely not the F1 historian as much.
Sure.
I know some names, I've seen some races, but don't know I haven't watched through the entire 1988 season. Um but ironically that is what I was leaning towards, and I was like, I'm gonna you got to go with your gut. I changed my multiple choice answers too much. um but yeah, that is the hot seat for this week. Another 2 for 5 performance from me. Maybe next time you'll see 3 for 5. We'll you'll have to check it out to find out.
I mean, I'm loving this, but we have to give you more credit, sir. You got 3 out of 5 last time. So don't even sell yourself short for a
Thought
second.
it was no, I'm pretty sure it was 2 out of 5.
You got I'm looking at it right now. You got 3 correct. You guessed Adelaide correct, you guessed Michael Schumacher correct, and you guessed 2037 correctly.
uh okay. I'll have to go back. I thought I only had two, but maybe not.
Real down on your hot seat memory here. Nope, this is your worst performance. We're only gonna go up from here.
No,
You
because
have to
last time
realize
was
this.
China. You just
Which
did
am I looking at?
Australia.
Oh,
So I was 3 for 5 on
okay.
Australia, but 2 for 5 for China.
Oh, my clicking skills lead us astray. You're right. All right,
It,
well, all
it took a
right, here we
second, but then
go.
I was like, wait, Adelaide. I was like, that was not one of those questions. So yeah, back to back 2 for 5s, but we'll bounce back from it. Um, but to move right along, Justin, why don't you take us into the winners and losers for this week?
All right, very good. So let me do it this way. I did a driver and a team. My driver was Max. And I think if you look at like his weekend, practice 1, 2, and 3, he's like a half a second behind the McLarens like the whole time. Whenever they're, these are only the laps that get posted as their like fastest time of the session. So take that with what you will. There's likely a session that he never went for like a quote unquote push lap, whatever you want to say. But overall, in general, he's like half a second behind the McLarens for most of the weekend. Going into qualifying though, really just nails this lap in a qualifying session that I felt like was very close going into Q3. I felt like there were at least like maybe 4 or 5 drivers that were up for pole position in that regard. Max goes on an absolute heater and secures himself the pole position ahead of the 2 McLarens. Like you were saying, this should have given the McLarens a decent opportunity to just kind of maybe bully him out of the race, kind of deal. Just two v one in whatever way you can. But Max able to withstand that pole position strong. His start was really strong. Lando Norris during his attack phases never was able to get into DRS range. I don't even think he got like within that 1 second mark of Max. All the while, Piastri was like hunting both of them as well. So I think overall, Max ran a crescendoing weekend that hits its full height at the win of the race. Because what we actually learned, and this hit me like a light bulb over this weekend, and I said this to you, off air, was the idea that Suzuka now, if we think about it, like the amount that it's been won from pole position or P2 position is like insane. And it is actually very comparable to like a Monaco. So Max doing a lot of the work on Saturday, locking up that pole position. So he's the first winner in my mind because he like it's not like, oh yeah, like Max wins again. Oh, the winner of the race like wins my number one win. It's like that's not even the case. It's that he was half a second behind and like changed his fate in some regards. Like he was supposed to be like P3, P4, whatever you want to say. But that qualifying lap was amazing and gave him an advantageous position for the Sunday race, which I mean, kind of did it for me.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Max was one of my winners as well. Big surprise for the fans out there, but I mean, yeah, his pole position lap was unbelievable. I think if any, he only had the fastest sector 3 during qualifying, so he didn't have the fastest sector for either of the first sectors. Um and he just was able to make it happen in a car that was not looking very hooked up. Even early in qualifying, he was talking about not feeling like, I think on his first hot lap, he was on the radio saying that he didn't feel like the tires were really, the front tires were getting good grip to be able to turn for a number of the different turns through the S's and, like you said, spoon. But he was able to figure out the right temperature windows for the tires, get them there, and put in a really unbelievable lap. Drove a super clean race, I think. And this is a conversation that I've seen come up, and I'll talk a little bit more. But Suzuka, of course, it's not going to be the easiest track. It is a historic track. Um, so it's not as big, it's not as robust to be able to have these massive cars that we have out there right now, um, getting past each other constantly and overtaking everywhere. But at the same time, um, I mean, Max did what he needed to in qualifying and then drove a super clean race, no mistakes, even with the cooler ground and everything on the race start with having some moisture out there and everything. Um, Drove super cleanly, got a good start, gets away, holds the lead, keeps them out of DRS for the entire race, and he's now just 1 point back in the drivers' championship at the end of the third race weekend.
Yeah, I think it was a really strong performance from him. And then my second winner, which you may have a little bit of contention, but I'm a little bit more zoomed out as far as like maybe not focusing so much on the the zoomed in lens of the weekend, but just like taking a little bit of a zoomed out view for McLaren. I think a double podium early on in the year, 2-3, like 0 to 1 mistakes made. I think they nailed it for a season that's 24 races long. They're already getting solid points performances in the first 2 races. That's even underselling it. It's 2 dubs, right? Like they are what feels like running a very just like even pay like well-paced campaign for a victory. Yes, this weekend they may not have attacked the Red Bull of Max Verstappen like as much as they could have. They could have maybe opted for like an off tire strategy instead of doing the double start on medium tires, maybe doing like one medium to hard, one hard to medium. I don't know what this stuff does to your race, but just thinking of like alternate strategies that were not run effectively. I understand that like more could have been done from the McLaren side of it, but I don't believe they overextended in really any regard. I think in a long season, these are the races you want slash need really, just like really solid points grabbing weekends. I think that's really solid. I'll be honest with you, if their one play that they were able to make over a race that was run very consistently from all of the teams, the top 10, I think from starting position to finishing position, they were like 0 to like 2 change, 1 change. Okay,
And
gotcha.
I think it was just Isaac Hadjar and Lewis
Sure.
Hamilton.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha. That rings true to me. So like in a race where there was so few overtakes made, like it's all tire management, your pit window, your pit lane, and I get it. Some fans like don't find that stuff interesting, but like the joke is like if you're worried about the margins, well, that's all the things that you have to factor in to see like yeah, all these teams were insanely evenly matched this weekend. So I think from that regard, I think it was an interesting race. But the one move that McLaren was able to make was some like middle of the pit lane, let me get grass on my knees move to like overtake Max. When they pit at the same time, they like messed up the dummy call. They like Red Bull was not phased also. They're like, oh shit, just try and pass him out of bounds. Like, let's just try that. It's like, uh, uh, come on, man. Like, what the
yeah,
hell? So, like, in that regard, like, yeah, very silly, but a 2-3 finish, like, at the end of the year, yeah, that's going to be exactly what you want.
yeah, and I can agree with you on a lot of those points. But like you kind of alluded to, I had the McLaren team as one of my losers for this week, and it's more so kind of a systematic thing that I'm seeing. Like obviously they had a great weekend. They picked up a ton of points. They increased their lead significantly in the constructors championship. I mean, they're now like almost 40 points ahead of Mercedes after 3 race weekends, which is huge. And they're
Mhm.
performing well. They're performing consistently. Um, they're not having these issues with the car or DNFs. Both drivers are driving cleanly, consistently, and getting to the finish line. My bigger concern, I think, and part of why I was disappointed with them is in a race weekend where it's very difficult to pass. You're seeing this throughout the race and everything that no one's being able to make moves on anyone. It's DRS trains out the wazoo, and a team that is leading the constructors championship is not making decisions with any sort of fire or urgency or really like uh, drive to take the win. Um, Back when we were seeing in 2020 and 2021, when we're seeing Max racing against the Mercedes cars, anytime that Max is taking pole position and he's got Lewis and Valtteri right behind him lining up on the grid, the Mercedes cars are constantly doing things to try and steal that win away. Oh, Lewis is telling me, give me opposite tire strategy. Box me opposite Max. Like, oh, Max pitted, let me go long. Like Lando could have stayed out there for 2, 3, 4 more laps and then had the tire advantage at the end of the race to actually chase Max down. Instead, you pit Oscar to cover off George because George pitted and you don't want to risk losing that position out. Um, that makes sense to me. I get it. But you have the opportunity to like look ahead of you and try and go for the win. Do something different. Have Oscar pit to try and get Max to pit to undercut him, and then have Lando go long. And hey, if Oscar gets past Lando into second and he's in third, swap positions back at the end of the day. You still take second and third. Your drivers are fine. You're not at risk of anyone behind you at that point. Like they're but you at least are giving yourself a chance instead of saying, well, like the only way, like you said, that Lando is taking the lead there or getting past Max at that point of the race is you're banking on the other team to have a bad pit stop and you to have a good one, which happens sort of about a second difference on the pit stop timing, or you're banking on Lando just getting a good clean getaway and trying to sneak past Max on the pit exit. And like, if that's your option, do something different. Have Lando go try to put in a crazy hot lap after Max is out of his way and he has clean air and try and pit the next lap. Like, I just don't understand pit at the exact same time as him. Hope you get lucky, do nothing, get second and third. Like, you could at least have done something and gotten second and third, or maybe first and third, or maybe first and second. You don't know. And then they were too scared to swap drivers around when they they said after the race weekend Lando's pace was better than Oscar's. I don't know how that can be true when Oscar kept getting into DRS behind Lando, but Lando couldn't get into Max's DRS. Like, Oscar got into DRS 3 or 4 times behind Lando and just didn't have enough pace to get past him. And then tires overheat in the dirty air and he drops back a little bit. Then he comes back again. So it's like, if that's what's happening, like 10 laps left in the race, swap him. Let him go after Max, see if he can run him down. But if not, swap drivers back. Like, this isn't a. I'm not talking about doing anything crazy. It was just disappointing because if there is a title fight and McLaren is not making these intelligent and, like, I mean, to be frank, like not new kind of decisions, or they're not trying these strategies that other teams actively have used, then I feel like they're not going full beans. They're not putting in as much thought and effort as they should be to trying to win, um in my opinion. And that's more of a concern in the long term in my mind for um, the team, because they've had their issues with decision making previously that we've talked about last year, where we felt like there were times where they didn't quite have it all together. Not quite like Ferrari, but I feel like there's easy strategy calls being missed.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. I would likely have to see a more aggressive, like, uh, fumble to raise such a red flag. I think on a weekend where there are, like, much larger question marks around other teams, other drivers. I'm just surprised that, like, a McLaren double podium on a weekend where, like, all right, here, I'll put it this way. There are okay, yeah, this is the question I want to ask. How much are you supposed to fault and, like, get on to McLaren for like not optimizing, how much are you supposed to look at it that way? Or just look at it as like, yeah, I think sometimes Max is just going to have one of those weekends where his like that X factor that he has is just going to win a race, and it's going to effectively like take it away what it sounds like to your opinion like should have been a McLaren win. Like you're thinking
Not
like a 1-3.
necessarily, but I mean,
Okay, so like you
but
get what I'm saying,
they,
like sometimes Max is just going to win really hard.
yeah, and but in a race like this where he wasn't winning really hard, like yeah,
Dude, what? Did
he's
you
only
see
it's a
the
no,
start?
I mean
Did
it's
you
a
see the start? He was gone.
it's it
He was
that
gone.
gap did not get over like 2.5 seconds at any point in the race. Not like
Nor
a
did it
single
close.
time.
Nor
And
did it close really.
I mean it rubber banded a little bit around, but no, like Lando didn't get into
Not in any
DRS.
way that
But
anybody had a fear of Norris ever like overtaking him. There
yeah,
was no
because they
point in
didn't
that race.
try any different strategy, and that's my point.
Fair,
Like
fair.
I'm not saying that Max didn't drive a phenomenal weekend. Obviously, I think he did. And I don't think his car should have been where it was, and it that's the Max factor. Like,
Dude,
but at
that's
the
what I'm
same
saying. I think
time,
it's more of a Max X Factor race than it is like McLaren like fucked something up.
no, and I'm not saying they fucked anything up even. Like
Mm.
I have high expectations for champions. They are the defending constructors champion. When I
Dude, I
if the
think
roles were
a
reversed, if Max was in P2, Lando was in P1, and Oscar was P3, and they're keeping the same like second and a half gap between the top three, I guarantee you that Red Bull would not have pitted Max the same lap as Lando. I guarantee it. They would have
yeah, I
done
mean they're different
something
teams.
different.
Yeah,
And
it's a strategy philosophy difference. McLaren is so much more and we've seen this play out. McLaren is so much happier with a bird in the hand over two in the bush. Like that is literally their strategy.
I mean, and it is a valid strategy for winning the constructors championship when you have two drivers in a car that is the best in the field, like two very good drivers with a car that's best in the field. In a year, if they are making those same decisions because they're like, well, we've got Lando and Oscar are P2 and P4, but George and Kimmy are P1 and 3, and we're just really not, we're like, let's just do nothing and just ride it out because that's a good points weekend. That's when you don't win a championship, when you aren't dominating, whether that be because a team can only get one driver into the points, whether it's because George is doing a really solid hell of a job this year, but Kimmy's a rookie and he'll probably have his mistakes here or there across the season. Like if you're in a bare knuckle title fight there and you are not willing to go for it, go for the gold, shoot your shot, then you're not going to end up being the champion in that season if you're not willing to do that. Maybe it does change if they're in a title fight and it's getting aggressive and everything where they start to make strategy decisions differently. But I feel like anytime in recent memory, whether it's been when Ferrari was fighting Mercedes for the Constructors' Championship in the 20 teens, whether it was Red Bull fighting Mercedes for the Constructors since I've been watching and all. These teams are constantly trying to go for the jugular. They're not getting complacent about, well, P2 and P3, like, we probably wouldn't get them, but and that's a great haul of points. We're extending our lead. We can just do nothing, coast it in, and like, and 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 still have a very successful weekend. Like,
Bro, it's
I,
insane to say that's do nothing. That's so disingenuous, it's
it's
insane.
it's not disingenuous. They put their
In
cars in P2 and
great.
3. They drove consistent races, but they made no effort with the strategy to try and go for the win. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I mean by do nothing. There was nothing that they did other than driving Max's wheel marks to actively try and take the win away. Like, yeah, you have the faster car, but it's hard to pass here. So yeah, like if you're just stuck in P2 and P3, you can go, oh, like maybe we'll get him. But even if they had gotten into DRS, we saw DRS trains all through the race weekend
Mhm.
where drivers still just didn't have enough of a pace advantage to get past anyone. Like you said, we only had
Yo,
like 3 passes in the entire race that weren't because of pit
sure.
stops. So that's
Your
where I'm like,
angle
but if
hold on.
you know this, these teams know that it's difficult to do this. So
Yo,
why
of
not?
course, of course, your whole angle is, like, hedging on some, like, intense title fight. Red Bull is not mounting that right now. I think your argument falls apart when McLaren looks at Red Bull and is like, "Yeah, they have one driver. They're not competing with us on that level." They're like their main competition right now is Mercedes. As far as like
Yeah.
a constructors championship fight, I don't think you're like oh if you're McLaren, yeah, I don't think you're overextending for like one max like P1.
I
I just don't
just
see that.
I just don't
I
see any risk
agree.
in not doing it. Like, what do they like? Okay, they let Lando go for 4 or 5 more laps after Max, and they give him the tire advantage at the end of the race. Like,
Mhm.
how does that hurt you? Do you not have P2 and P3 still? Like, like I it just seems complacent, and that's obviously there's no title fight right now. There probably won't be this year if things continue on the trajectory. But like but
Exactly!
but it's a systemic thing. Even when Red Bull
Bro!
no, and
Okay.
I'm not saying that it it can't change or that they might not do anything differently, but I do not recall any other team that has been a constructors championship or in the constructors fight in the past 7, 8 years that I've been watching Formula One now that are not constantly like trying to go after that win. Like there's there was no there was no hammer time. There was no
Lando was prepared to overtake in the pit lane, my guy. He was willing to break the law for this victory. What are you talking about? He was risking everything right there.
all right, all right. I mean, I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that McLaren is hurting themselves. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. They didn't blunder away all of their points and have both drivers crash into each other and like it's not a bad weekend when you look at the points, but I am not used to, and I think of it as kind of a somewhat of a like complacent or almost loser mentality to just succumb to, this is what it is, and like to make no effort. Like even in League of Legends, when you see teams that are getting down by 10,000 gold, They are getting way behind. They still are trying to do something. They're trying to wombo combo to with their draft to get a pick on someone and to push that advantage, or they're trying alternative strategies. They're not just going, well, we lost that early fight, and so now we're just gonna let ourselves bleed out and then lose. Like, that's what I'm talking about. There wasn't just like any decision making, and like the pitting on the same lap just seems so bizarre. Like, tell him box opposite Max, even if you want to come in approximately the same. Like, see what Lando can do in clean air for even one lap. Let him put in a heater of a lap and see if he
Mhm.
comes out ahead. Red Bull might still have a 3 second pit stop, and you have a 2 second pit stop. And then instead of Lando having to go into the grass and almost losing the car, he's in a clean pit lane exit like he's supposed to be and doesn't lose a few tenths of a second there, wobbling around in the grass trying to get grip again. Like,
Mhm.
there are so many things that change when that they just allowed everything to just be the same, and they collected their points and they're on to the next weekend and everything's fine and dandy in McLaren world. But I I just I like to see, and I feel like I'm used to at this level of competition, seeing teams go for the competitive edge in any way that they can. And it just felt weird that they didn't at all. It's I know it's a lot more conversation than and obviously, like I said, I've agreed with you on all of your points when you're looking at it as an overall perspective. Like, yeah, there's some race weekends where Charles or Max or Lewis or George might just steal away a victory, or George steals away a podium like he's been prone to do in recent memory. Like, those things are gonna happen. But I think that they have intelligent enough people to. I mean, Ferrari's got 32 strategies prepped. I'm sure they have one for not boxing on the same lap as the guy that they're trying to get ahead of.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me. I think I'm gonna sell all my McLaren stocks. You're right. I think they didn't optimize hard enough. Um, yeah, that's funny. That's really funny. If Yeah, I mean, fair. This is all very
I mean,
fear-mongering, I think, against McLaren. If in this triple header we see a slew of unforgivable, non-jugular hunting strategy moves from McLaren, if we just see, like, a worrying trend in that regard,
that
yeah,
is what I basically said.
yeah, then, like, yeah, maybe I'll get on board, but like one race of a double podium, I'm not
it's
buying your end of the world here.
it's a loser mentality, Justin. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, you're playing not to lose in that regard. Man,
That's fair.
dude, that's some crazy Max fandom where you're like, dude, I can't believe you let me win. Like, you gotta, come on, man, don't let me win so good. Like, come on, McLaren, what are you doing, guy? Like, dude,
I,
what?
I I don't feel like I'm that it to me it didn't even have anything to do with Max. Like, Max just happened to be the guy ahead. If they had done the same
Sure.
to George, Charles, Lewis, anyone else, like,
It's
I
just
would
so
have.
funny that it's Max, though. Like, of
It
course.
is, of course, because it's Max. But um yeah, I feel like in all
Dude,
of
I
my
thought
time
I was the
watching.
McLaren fan, honestly, and you're over here just like, oh God, you fuck it, you're not even like predators, man. Come on.
I just
Damn, dude.
want
I
them
mean,
I just want them to be the best they can be, because what else is going to bring out these great performances from Max?
damn. Okay, that's actually like a very lucid point to make where like fair if you have if you have competitors that are pushing the other ones around them, that just like elevates the competition, makes for like even more exciting races than like we thought were possible.
And
That's
this was
actually
still in my mind, this was still a I enjoyed the race. I was like on the
fair.
edge of my seat. I had a good time watching, but um but I feel like a lot of the opinions I saw out there, I'll take us into my second loser for this week. But
Yeah, go for it. Tell me all about it, dude.
no, but uh the viewership, I think a lot of people had the opinion that it was a pretty boring race. I was on the edge of my seat because it was Max up front and he probably shouldn't have been, but he just had a mega weekend. And the gaps were so tight that it was an exciting battle to kind of just be watching up front to see how those gaps were moving. I enjoy that, but I can understand why maybe three overtakes through the entire race is not the most exciting for people and viewers. Um, it made me just like think about different things that like what could have been done maybe to make this a more exciting race. George talked about in his post race interview whether like maybe they should have gone with softer tires just to give the option of a two-stop strategy. They're kind of just like going into this up like everything can just be a one stop, and that's the way it is, at least for these first couple races. But I think that's one change. I saw there were a number of instances of drivers going over the chicane. I was like, is there a way that you can make that slightly more punishing so that that mistake actually is penalizing? Like, if the only place that anyone is making a mistake on track has zero penalty to it, is it really that big of a mistake? As long as you don't do it more than three times, like you're fine. So I was like, do you put gravel? Do you put sausage curbs? I don't want to add danger or anything, but I'm like, it you shouldn't be able to just be like, I missed the chicane and then just cruise on through, which I think we see similarly at, I believe it's Monza has a similar like chicane that uh, has been cut a number of times in recent memory. So I feel like there are unfortunately like going to be a number of races that are just like this, like in Monaco or here in Suzuka, where we won't see much passing, overtaking, and it can get to be a little bit of just watching the cars go around the track, which I still enjoy. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, overall, I kind of curious what your thoughts are in terms of like what maybe could have made the race weekend a little more exciting in terms of kind of maybe allowing drivers to be able to pass more. It's also, I think, a car issue because these cars are so big and they're all so competitive at this point that getting that pace differential in the one DRS zone is just not enough.
Yeah, and that would be something to look at, either adding a like possibly another DRS zone. There's the straight that leads into the spoon curve that could possibly be a DRS location. Um, but that doesn't help your passing there. I don't really think. So that's something to look at, but yeah, I think you're right. It often falls into just the amount of pit stops. Like it's really hard to get an offset in strategy in a one stop race. Like because everybody's effectively doing the same strategy. It's just like once you get to like P15 and down, those positions then start thinking about like tire offsets where they'll do like a soft start or whatever to like make a push up the field. But overall, yeah, these one stop races look like if you were to look at team strategies, like they're very cookie cutter across the board. So yeah, trying to pull water from stone for a good race in that regard, I think can be tough when these teams they're not optimizing for entertainment, unfortunately. Like they're optimizing for points and wins.
Yeah,
So I think the like goals of a fan and the goals of the team are like at odds, right? I
that's
know the
fair.
drivers
That's a good
want
point.
to make sure it's like a good race. I know they want to put on a good show for the fans, but at the same time, they're not going to compromise like their positions for like whatever, like a more entertaining race or something like this, to where they're like, oh, we're just gonna do like a two-stop strategy to like, oh, like maybe
Right.
change it up. Like, well, you're gonna be the only ones doing it, and then
Yeah.
GG, right? So unfortunately, I think you have a couple of those elements at odds with each other. Changing some of the maybe like off locations on some of the turns, changing them from like um just runoff area where they can then get back on track like you had alluded
Mhm.
to, and I believe strongly in the gravel trap as a way to deter driver like over zest, right? Where like it's just gonna beat you and that's session over. So
Right.
then you temper that expectation as a driver, you lay off a little bit, that slows down the whole flow of the thing, and then cool, now we have like an interesting spectacle going on. So yeah, there's like a couple of ideas. This comes up in conversation every now and again between you and I is like yeah, some of these tracks feel like they're getting towards their like max of all of these elements combined, like speed, car size, all of these things. It's like, but what are we gonna do? We're gonna like go build another bigger Suzuka somewhere. It's like that's a
Yeah.
limiting factor as well. So yeah, unfortunate. I yeah, unfortunate that in some regards you could say that this was a boring race. But I don't feel that way.
I agree. I
Understandable, but yeah, I don't feel
yeah.
that way.
I found my
Um,
enjoyment and my excitement from the race either way, but I saw a lot of dissenting opinions to that when I was
I don't know
after the
how.
race, and um, there's people who are like, ah, no one passed each other. That's boring. And even
Sure,
like Oscar and Lando and Max in the cool down room after the race and the
they did. They
highlights,
said, "Is
like
that
they
all that happened?"
Oscar was like, that's all that happened during the race.
Mhm.
And it's
Like
like,
so funny, by the way.
yeah. So I mean, I feel like not that they're like every team is trying to optimize their strategy, and like you said, a team's not going to go for a two stop if it is going to be 20 seconds slower. Like it makes no
Right.
sense. Um, but yeah, I would think there are some ways that they could potentially change it, and maybe with the new car regulations in 2026, and I think cars are going to be a little bit smaller. I mean, we see so much excitement in the F2, F1 Academy, F3 races with the smaller cars going around these circuits. Like we see crazy passes at Monaco with the F2 and F3 cars. And so I think that the size of the cars might just be part of the dilemma as well. Um, but overall, like I said, I enjoyed the race. Just a number of people I saw were very sleepy. Might have also been the 1 a.m. Eastern start time.
Oh yeah, that's brutal. If you're, a fan in North America trying to watch these early rounds live, you're in a sleepover scenario, which is tough to bring high energy to, if you are trying to watch it live. So yeah, that's definitely understandable. One thing that I was keyed into during the race, as far as like, edge of your seat, really, really finding things to grab onto is the Ferrari weekend, especially during the race with Lewis Hamilton. It felt like, now we've heard this like a couple times over the last couple races, is the um is the like radio is the radio messages
Mm,
with Lewis and his engineer. It seems like there's some definite wrinkles that need to be ironed out in that relationship. It felt like Lewis was information starved. It sounded like he
mm,
wanted way more information, as far as like position, where he was weak and like where he could improve. And it just felt like they were really like not on the same page as what needed to be being communicated over the race. So I was really intrigued by that, and I'm curious if we're going to see an improvement in that regard and how soon that can happen for Ferrari, because it feels like that may be hampering Lewis's performance just a little bit. And I got a feel for the guy. Like, that's got to be so tough to just try and slot into this. I mean, you know, uh, quality racing outfit and just try and keep all your same proficiencies. So yeah, that was something, and I reframed it a little bit. That was like a little bit of a losing out scenario, I think, for Ferrari, is this like lag time that Lewis is taking to kind of slot in with, it seems like, his engineer specifically. So there, and I'm feeling, maybe like comfort on his side of the garage, leaving him a little like maybe not giving him as much confidence like in the cockpit, to, push as full as he needs to. So just some questions there around the, I guess you would say, the second Ferrari driver. God.
I mean,
But yeah,
I I'm I'm definitely with you. And it makes me wonder a little bit past, like, obviously there's more messages going back and forth than what they broadcast
sure.
over the commercial broadcast and everything. So that's where I start to wonder similarly, like, how deep does this issue actually go? Because Lewis doesn't get too frustrated on the radio typically in all of our experience watching him. I feel like he doesn't usually get too feisty on the radio unless he's really in the heat of a very close, like, on track battle. um so I don't. I'd like to know what conversations were happening that he was maybe asking for that information and then not getting the response before he's just like, I need you to tell me XYZ. Like, I thought we were on the same wavelength with this conversation, but clearly you're not giving me the information I need. So let me just, but like, there has to be other conversations that are going on that lead up to that kind of frustration and everything. And so that is a tough spot to be in. You're slotting a guy who is a great driver and has been with the same team for, how long was it? 10 years with Mercedes or something like that.
That sounds
Um,
right.
I think it might have been more. It might have been 11 or 12, but at least like 10 years with one organization. You're moving him to a new country, speaking a new language with all new components, and he knows how he likes things. Like, he has his, like, well-oiled machine down from when he was with Mercedes. So yeah, it's a tough spot to be in. And especially when the car just doesn't quite seem to be there either, to give them that shot to compete with the top couple drivers in the field at the moment. Yeah, it's a tough spot for Ferrari, but I think they'll continue to progress. Hopefully with that relationship.
Yeah, big time agree. Because I think to have a successful Formula One season overall, we need Ferrari in the hunt, especially Lewis and Red now. We I think just as fans like want that team to be competitive up at the top, and just like you want to see this guy like competing in his best possible form. I want to see what that looks like. I want to see what like peak Lewis in a Ferrari like can do. So yeah, hopefully none of this stuff causes like too many hiccups, but yeah, just looking forward to more races out of the Ferrari and to see what they do. But that was like the only other thought that I had that was like, oh, I here's like maybe a team or scenario that's not like maximizing or getting the most out of their position. But were there any other points that you wanted to hit before we move on? I know there was some like red flags throughout the weekend that were kind of odd. Any other like notes that you want to hit on?
Well, I guess neither of us did. I didn't do my second winner, and you didn't do your second loser, so we can breeze through those real quick. But my second winner for the weekend was just Isaac Hadjar. I just wanted to
Hmm.
to give him his flowers a little bit with the like you had mentioned, the issues he had during qualifying with his seat and seat belt and everything digging into him. Still qualifies P7, puts the car into Q3, qualifies P7 back to back races now, and is the second Red Bull car on the grid. Um, set with the Racing Bulls. Um, and then to go on only to be passed by Lewis during the race in a Ferrari. Hangs on to P8. Great points for him, and I just wanted to give him his props on the weekend there. But yeah, good weekend for Isaac.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout out. Another one of the full season rookies that is, yeah, making some waves and having some good performances. The the second loser that I had was Yuki. I believe with his opting for, and this is more of like driver from their point of view. I
Mm.
think from his angle, he was really disappointed with the basically just choice that he made for the setup difference, and feeling like he really just kind of maybe left a weekend on the table in that regard. I think for somebody who in their home race was really hoping to make waves, new team, home race, like just so many angles you can look at. I think he was really hoping for a good performance. So maybe from his viewpoint, he would say that yeah, we had a tough weekend. Really wish I could have done better. I think from the outside looking in, considering everything going on, considering like Yuki's general performance, I think it was right in his wheelhouse. I think he did really well. I think he handled it all quite quite well over the course of the weekend. But for somebody who maybe had some expectations, maybe some extra storylines kind of layered on for the weekend, yeah, I think he is going to be happy to just be like, all right, let's give it a try next weekend, and see what we can do in this Red Bull, because I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get on top of it, and yeah, he's just hunting, looking for that pace. So I think he'll just want to move on, take what he learned. But yeah, overall, I think we can expect a little bit more out of Yuki.
Yeah, I and you always want to come out and set the world on fire at your first race. You want to just show out and have one of those legendary first races like you've just made it into the big team. You're raring and ready to go. So definitely a little I can imagine him being a little disappointed, but
Hmm.
based on first time in the car and how tough the car seems to drive, I was actually decently like pleased with the weekend. It wasn't anything superhuman, but at the same
Hmm.
time he didn't make mistakes in the car. It just couldn't quite get there with the pace. Um, so yeah, a little bit of a tough start for Yuki, but I'm sure he'll keep his head down and just keep pushing for the upcoming races. But the only other notes that I really wanted to touch on quickly were I wanted to mention Ollie Behrman getting into the points with P10 as well as Alex Albon in P9. A couple of nice point pickups for their respective teams. But the other thing that I just want to note and kind of keep an eye on, but we saw two of the I guess first fines from the FIA of the season for things that are kind of a little silly. Carlos Sainz received a fine for late attendance to the national anthem when he was visiting with the team, or I guess paddock doctor, because he was having stomach issues before the race. So there's like a paper trail of like, yes, he came to see me, wasn't feeling well. I administered XYZ medicine, sent him on his way, and they're like, but you should have prepared for your stomach to not feel well sooner because it's very important to not miss the national anthem, which I can understand them wanting people to be there, but it seems a little bit trivial. It wasn't like an intentional or disrespectful thing from Carlos. But the other one, which is something that I was curious if we were going to see these things happen, but Alex Albon was fined for his team radio messages because of coarse, rude, or language that may cause offense that was not considered suitable for the broadcast. Um, so Alex getting a little fired up in his car because he's having issues with his shifting and all as he's going hundreds of miles an hour, was worth a €150,000 fine, um, and 3 penalty points. So
I don't know about that, dude.
something to keep an eye on because and it says at the bottom of this ruling, should Albon repeat this offense, a greater penalty of €200,000 plus a 1 month suspension is to be ordered. So that is where I was worried in terms of how this would be handled by the FIA, when those rules were being put in place during the off season, and that makes it pretty abundantly clear to me that this is not the amount of power that they should have, because I didn't see there was anything that egregious with his radio.
Yeah, and this is the exact problem that we pointed out of like, okay, so first they have control of the radio messages and what gets put out. They then take that power and cherry pick the most provocative ones, choose then to put them on air, and then go to the driver and say, "Oh, this offensive thing that you said in your team radio, we put it on TV, so now you're gonna get fined."
Mm,
It's like, so yeah, and that's like an egregious amount of money as well. I mean,
it's a lot of money. Like
yeah,
I
I
was
hope there's some type of an appeal or all the drivers just start doing it like all the time to where they just can't, like, it just becomes untenable to keep like
Yeah.
enforcing or
Or
something.
I mean, we
Cause
talked
yeah, this
about the
is like
rally
exactly what
drivers, like it
right. Yeah, because this is exactly what you were alluding to, where it's like, oh man, yeah, that's not cool. That's not
it's
cool.
it's such a slippery slope too. It's like what
Well,
was
exactly.
so egregious about his messages that they were considered to be this misconduct. Like, I mean, I
He called them
heard
all muggles, dude.
I heard Lewis being a little sassy on the radio too. Is he gonna get a slap on the wrist or like I don't want anyone to get a slap on. I don't want anyone to be penalized for these
Right.
things. But like, are we gonna go back to Max holding his own press conferences and like anything? It's just silly. It doesn't match up with what I think general opinion of Formula One wants. I don't think any of the viewership, I don't think any of the teams would have voted for those rules to be put in place. So something to just be aware of, especially the penalty points. I mean, 3 penalty points for that is pretty significant as well.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, four of those, and that's a not only your 1 month race ban, but that's enough penalty points for another race ban as well.
Yeah, that's some quick maths you did. Yeah.
Yeah, simple multiplication. That's what I'm good at, or division. I guess depends which way you go with it. Um, but yeah, something to keep an eye on. But I think those were the only other notes I had for the weekend, really.
Sure, yeah, and that's like not a small note to end on, honestly. That's something we really need to keep an eye out on is how much they're trying to like, yeah, just like weirdly like bully the drivers with like radio message like manipulation. It's kind of kooky. Hopefully, yeah, I guess what I would hope for most is like a possible drivers association uh possible like pushback or just like
Yeah,
some type of maybe like sit down or conversation to say like hey like we may not be aligned on like what's possible here. So yeah, that's like a really odd one, and yeah, I definitely think we should keep an eye on um that and things like it, right?
yeah. I think that fans and viewers being aware of these things uh kind of allows us to have some pushback as well. I think like you said, the drivers union could definitely band together, put out a statement, and kind of push back on their own, similar to the rally drivers that we were talking about at the Kenya
Mhm.
rally, um, who were just refusing to answer any official questions and press conferences. Basically, I think that us putting this out into the world, whether it's us or any of the other podcast content creators and everyone drawing attention to it, might put some pressure on the FIA to be a little more reasonable. You would hope, at least.
Mhm.
Um, so definitely we will keep an eye on it, but I think that sounds like it's our last notes from the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, and I think it was quite a competitive one. If anything, it just shows us like how close the field really is. It shows us that I think barring small variable change, depend like for any of these teams, they could be left with significant advantage or significant disadvantage. We see we're getting into a point where teams and drivers are going to be trying out just different setups to try and get advantage over either their teammates or other the drivers that are around them on the grid. So I think we're in for like a really interesting time where like some new and not often seen strategy calls are being activated in races. And it's seems like it's going to create some interesting variants for us because we're seeing these cars. I mean, these qualifying sessions are so tight. It was, I think, thousandths of a second that decided this qualifying session. So it's like, yeah, what more do you really want? I understand the format, the race format's like not being the best for like passing and action in that regard. But yeah, overall, I think we're in a pretty competitive point right now, and Suzuka was a great example of that. And yeah, I think it was a fun weekend, first of a triple header that we'll be going into. But yeah, uh, some storylines to look ahead to as well.
Absolutely. So, to wrap it out, if you didn't know at this point, it was Max P1, Lando P2, Oscar P3. Max is now 1 point back in the driver's standings with 61 to Lando's 62 points. Oscar's in third with 49 points, and George Russell with 45 just behind him. So still a lot to race for as we continue on throughout the season, but I am definitely looking forward to it, especially with this the next two races of this triple header coming up as we go back to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Gonna be warm, sandy, and rough tracks. We're gonna get some tired deg conversations going here. But before then, let's get into the cool down lap, Aaron. We've got Rose, Thorn, and Seed for everybody this week. Aaron, hit me with yours. Let me hear what you had going on.
So I'll go kind of quickly. I know this has gotten a little long with my McLaren tirade mid episode, but my rose, I wanted to, because I missed out last episode because I had a mix up on the cooldown lap. Um,
Sure, you missed the assignment. We
I
remember.
I wanted to mention that I the birthday dinner that Colleen and I went out for and got sushi was bomb. That should have been my food flavor of the week, and it was not. But my rose this week was just that the original Warzone map is back, and so me and the guys who all started playing together during the pandemic are back in what feels like home. It's kind of a fun throwback. The game play is a bit different. I didn't realize how much it had changed with all the newer iterations that they had put out of the game. So that's been a blast, kind of getting back into it. My thorn this week was just that I was sick for a few days. It had me knocked down pretty good. Not the most exciting thing, and missing out on work, and now playing catch up as I'm back in work to get on top of things is um, not the most exciting. But then my seed is that I have talked about it for a long time. I've slowly been trying to figure out what might be the next thing in my career, and I have applied to a couple of positions, just put things out there, see if I hear back, or um, maybe come across something that I don't know, I am not thinking of, or an opportunity that's out there that wouldn't have normally been um, in my wheelhouse. I've been keeping an eye on motorsportsjobs.com and all of their posts, but unfortunately, pretty much every US job that I could do is in Indianapolis or North Carolina for NASCAR and IndyCar. So I'm gonna keep an eye out, see if there's anything that comes closer this way. Uh, but it felt good to just put an application out there and be like, I'm open to see what happens, and go from there. But that's my rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
Oh yeah, that's very exciting. I love hearing that Verdansk is back. I saw that in where did I see that? I think I saw it on maybe like it might have been like on the Steam like front page, maybe like sales page on Steam, something
Yeah.
like this. Verdansk is back. I immediately thought of you. What is the preferred drop zone? Now, do you call them POIs or do you call them
Um,
compounds? What's the call out?
POIs.
Okay.
Well, we typically just say whatever the name of the place we're going, and that
Okay.
was one of the classic things about Verdansk is it all the or areas around the map have very different feels, but it all blends together
Mhm.
very well. So, our favorite place to go is prison, and just to try and win that POI, kill anyone else who goes there, and then from there, kind of rotate wherever we need to. But that's our go to spot.
Very cool. Now, what are the areas where you can like respawn your teammates? Do those randomize or are there like set locations that like increase like battles?
Yeah, so there's each time you load in, like there are set locations where those could be, but it does vary
Okay.
from game to game.
Mhm.
So sometimes prison has a buy station in the middle of it, sometimes it's out across this little like moat bridge that goes into it. And so there's multiple locations. It is um it's a little tough because the in Verdansk, there were very few buy stations originally, and so going back to that, it's can be pretty tough to get your teammate and everyone back into the game. Um, People like to sit on the very few buy stations and just have their guns trained there. So it definitely is. Um, it has its frustrating moments, but that is also the way that it goes and kind of how it plays more like a battle royale than some of the newer versions were.
Mhm.
So it's more adjusting like the play style um, versus there being like any massive issues or anything. But yeah, it randomizes a little bit, but there are set spots it can randomize to.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So you can play around general patterns, but then you have to like adapt on the fly like per map.
Right, exactly.
Sure. Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, happy to hear that a beloved map is back. It's always fun to like play on boards. It it is a very real version of like you don't know what you had till it's gone.
Oh yeah.
And there's been changes in Hunt Showdown recently as they've been like patching the game. So only 3 out of the 4 maps are currently available. So, like,
Okay.
part of the community conversation right now is like, bring back DeSalle, please. Like, everybody just wants to play on DeSalle again when they were originally rolling out the new maps. Like, once we got Stillwater back, we're like, yes, like, oh, it feels so good to play on Stillwater. So I know exactly what you mean. That's awesome. Shout out Willie in the chat, who is a Verdansk lover, it seems like. We appreciate that. Let me hit you with my Rose Thorn and Seed. So I had the opportunity. I've never been in an anime myself. I've never been the main character of an anime show, but I had the unique opportunity to know what it felt like to be in an anime villain battle this past week.
Okay.
I had like the beginning of the arc, like early on, it was like a year and a half ago, I had my first encounter with like the villain, right? He was
Okay.
too strong for me. I did not have the power necessary. I got beat up, right? But now again, my story arc brings us to a meeting again. And he says, yo, you ready? I said, I think I am ready this time. And we did battle. And throughout the battle, I was like, oh my God, I'm literally doing it. Like, I am more powerful than I was before, doing a better job in combat than I was before. My techniques flowing better than they did before. And by gosh, I have to say, my season 2 battle with this villain went way better than my season 1 battle with the villain. I think I think there may even be a rematch where I can show my skills again. So I thought that was very fun. I felt great great pride and triumph after said anime villain battle, and I really got to know really got to know what it feels like. So that was wonderful. Really appreciated that. Big thorn in my side. My cards just keep getting banned. One of the like smaller formats of Magic the Gathering that I played. I won't like bore you with all the details, but there was a card that I have like literally 4 decks that it's like the draw engine of. It's like that's how you like refill your hand and
Yeah.
get more cards. They it's the core of like 4 pauper decks that I have. They banned it like last week or whatever. It's like, oh, so that big thorn in my side because it's not a format that I get to play often.
Gotcha.
And I just want to play like the same decks, right? And I don't want to have to like fiddle with them really. So now I'll have to find some dumb replacement for that card and whatever. So big thorn in my side in that regard. And then my seed here for the week, very interesting one. Asked my mom a question that I should have had the answer to. I didn't know when her birthday was and when my dad's birthday was. It was always this thing of like, they would come to me and say, hey, their birthday is coming up. Give me $50. And like, well, I'll go buy the gift or whatever. And then on some day they would say, hey, it's their birthday. We're giving them the gift. Like, okay. But I never paid attention to like what the date was.
Okay.
I asked my mom what her birthday was and what my dad's birthday was. So on my dad's birthday, I can do something special. And then on my mom's birthday, I can do something special for them. Because I feel like in that regard, I haven't been that attentive, as a son. And I feel like, maybe sometime, maybe like at least every third year, maybe I can, say happy birthday or whatever. So planting the seed to maybe do better on some birthdays in that regard, and I think it's going to go really well. So just planting that seed, looking forward to it. We'll see how well we do. But yes, sir, that is my rose, thorn, and seed here for the week.
Set a couple week out reminder in your phone so that you're not just being reminded day of. Give yourself a little heads up on that reminder for when it is. So you can, if you
Damn,
do want to plan something, you have a little bit of leeway to put something together, whether getting together with your mom to go out for dinner or lunch or having her over or whatnot. That I think
sure.
would be valuable for you, sir.
Oh, that's like a next level recommendation. I really can appreciate something like that. Yeah, not just a day of reminder, but also like a week before reminder. Oh man, that's genius. And that's why I bring these things to your attention because you really know how to take an 8 to a 10. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. I do my best. I'm happy to help. But I will have to wrap this up here for us. That takes us to the end of the cool down lap. Ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Tired Boys podcast. We appreciate everyone for spending time with us, listening to or skipping through my tirades that I occasionally go on. I'll have to
That was
work
the
on
best chat we've had.
reeling them in here and there, but yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to watch and listen with us.
New episodes after every Formula One race of the season. So be here to check out after those races. We just appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for spending your time with us, the Tired Boys podcast. Peace out, everyone.
So yeah.